Hello there, this is Warpath1985 speaking, and for today's video/review, I shall be discussing the Star Wars Vintage Collection Trooper Blitz. I shall also be reviewing alongside Blitz the new Andor mold version of the 501st Trooper, and also the Coruscant Guard / the Shock Trooper. Now, so with that aside, I'd like to first talk about the characterization of all three of them, which is going to be very short because I like to keep it short generally. But basically, first of all, Blitz was a Trooper Commander, and he was part of the Rancor Squad, the Rancor Battalion company, I think it was Rancor Company, seen on Kamino. And this company wasn't really seen that often beyond Kamino, but they did receive like at least some free representation with the ARF troopers, which is, well, their main general like trooper type that the company was mainly known for, at least from the knowledge of what we know of. Because again, the company that Blitz is part of, that Rancor Company, which I think is called Rancor Company, maybe we can clarify that, was generally only seen during the Kamino episodes of the Clone Wars. And also, Blitz, unlike Havoc and also Colt, was also one of only 2 members of the 4-member commanding unit of Rancor Company, which was also included by Hammer, which also, as I mentioned again, I mentioned this before in my Havoc review, that Hammer was also the only ARC Trooper from that original Trooper clone mold released by LEGO to actually receive minifigure until they made that mold, general helmet, sculpt, whatever, with later released 5s and during the 25th anniversary. So besides that, that's all for Blitz's characterization. But for the 501st Trooper, a lot more basic. Also forgot to mention that Blitz also received like a single figure beforehand, but once again, I think that's probably it. I think he may have received a back series figure, unsure. But for 501st Trooper, has received a ton of figures, since 501st Trooper was pretty much the main, technically 4, if you include like the Kashyyyk Troopers, but that doesn't really count also. But generally, with the 4 first Elite Troopers, but generally, as far as the main 3 clone troopers from the Revenge of the Sith, that being the 501st, the Coruscant Guard, and the 212. Technically, you could include the other clone troopers as well, but generally, those are the main 3 that most people would associate with Revenge of the Sith. And honestly, these would receive various figures, so various toy lines, and various companies. Not only have like 2 examples of that, I'll show up a little later in the review, but generally, the 501st Trooper has to be like the most loved out of the toy line in Star Wars as a whole, generally due to the fact that it's associated with Anakin Skywalker, and also the main pretty much clone character most people know of, that being Captain Rex, is also associated by them, that being their commanding officer, besides obviously Anakin Skywalker. And finally but not least, the Coruscant Guard, another basic thing. Also, part of the main 3 like clone troopers from Revenge of the Sith, well, advertised that gives you most toys, etc. However, Coruscant Guard was also much more popular in the sense that it was, well, the only really red colored clone trooper for a while, mind you, until we see like a couple others. Generally, you could also include like the Recon Corps also, with I forget his name, the first Recon Corps, I think it was called. But generally, those are the only other one, even though they're really not really supposed to be red, supposed to be like this weird peach color. Confusing, but generally, yeah, they're only the red clone troopers that most people would associate because of the color red, etc. That's why they're so generally well popular. Beyond their really unique characterization as being the clone troopers primarily stationed on, well, Coruscant, the main hub and general capital of the galaxy as a whole, technically, the Republic, etc. And because of that, they're just stationed there, and also they're characterized as generally being very detached from the rest of the clone troopers, because they're primarily trained in that general policing upwards, like authority over the Republic, rather than the common or role the clone troopers have as being like soldiers. Say that's kind of their characterization also. And also beyond that, they haven't been shown as much presence to like the 501st, but a lot more of Blitz's, well, occasion, where he's only like a single episode character most of the time. While Twilight Force features in a lot of media, such as the Clone Wars, and also have received various other characters as well, which you do have in other form, for example, also, but won't be showing off for time constraints. So, beyond that, the figures themselves are actually really good overall. Since we use the more modern-ish vintage collection body type/body construction, obviously they're a lot more better in comparison to older molds which didn't have this body construction. Especially in the case of that, the Andor mold, Andor technically Clone Trooper mold, that was introduced during Andor Season 1 general wave of vintage collection, which unfortunately I do not own any other versions of that mold currently right now. As mentioned before in previous video, I was about to get a Captain Rex, but I said pass on it because it was really expensive at GameStop. And which soon after GameStop closed down and also had a huge sale on that stuff, which once again I regret heavily. In fact, I think it was like both GameStops were nearby, which sucks. But yeah, for Blitz here, I'm first talking about is just the standard ARC Trooper mold overall. There's nothing really new about his articulation nor the sculpt and etc. Since I already discussed the mold when we talked about as much overall. However, generally, the figure itself is very nice looking. Put my autofocus here. But yeah, it's a very nice looking figure. Comes with the same exact accessories as Havoc, which if you're curious about a comparison between both of them, here we are. They look very good together because I do not own, unfortunately, Colt. Because I don't know why. Blitz was a lot more easier to obtain in comparison to Havoc, but Colt's is for some reason a lot harder to find. Unsure as to why. That was the reason why I got this thing on sale, because it was like, what, $10 I think on like Warhammer.com. It's pretty cheap in comparison to like the original $15 RXM price. It was at during like most of the time it was on that website. But yeah, it's basically the same as that figure overall. He does have that standard Clone Trooper head sculpt, which technically is accurate in a sense, because unlike, what was it, Colt and Hammer, but Havoc, he never actually got to see general face sculpt, or generally just the face in general, so makes sense kind of. Even though in Havoc's case, it's actually a reference to a different Clone Trooper also named Havoc, so But yeah, it is cool that he at least has a movable helmet and has a head sculpt. That's technically unique to him, even though it's just your standard Clone Trooper head. So, not really the original, but at least it's there. But yeah, there's nothing really impressive with the Blitz in general, beyond just, he's just the same mold, same articulation, same everything, as I discussed previously with Havoc. And here's also Blitz with 5s, because I have 5s, but I don't have the other 2. Because again, there's just, I don't know why, it's really hard to find. Not helped by the fact that they're the 3-pack, the gift set one, was even harder to find. But I'm first talking about with the figure that came out first, I believe. I think it came out first. That was the Fire Force Trooper. Sort of a camera here. But yeah, this is the newer Andor mold that was used back in 2023, I believe, either late 2023 or early 2024. It was used from that weird time of like vintage collection. But generally, this mold is improvement as a replacement with, well, the previous released vintage collection skinnier Clone Trooper mold. So, this one with Commander Gray, which might I add, you can see that there's a huge difference in proportion, which I'll be showing off here with better comparison with the Shock Trooper here. Now you can see, yeah, there's huge difference in proportion, etc. Like, obviously, there's a lot of improved proportions throughout the whole body. Also, due to the fact that, yes, the Clone Trooper mold design itself is based off a physical, like, costume, like the original one, which is based off a animated / CGI version of that model, to the costume weaver of the Clone Trooper. Well, in this case, is a physical costume, which is pretty cool, might I add. Which also means that it's much more improved, and also by that fact, it's also technically taking inspiration from the Battlefront 2 character model, especially in the case of the shoulders, where they kind of like sag a little bit down. like a little bit. It's only seen with the Battlefront 2 character model, nothing really else, like the one they use for Hot Toys. This is completely original to the Battlefront 2 model. Weird, but it at least helps better proportion it in comparison to this lanky mess. Such a giant head sculpt, which is due to the movable helmet gimmick, which there's Gray's head, which once again, same head sculpt as like Blitz, basically. But in the case of the shock trooper here, which I want to discuss, like the Archbishop one of them, it's actually its own unique head. And this is a reuse from the 4-pack, which is the 1.5 version of this specific mold. Technically, even it's like 1.5. There's like 6, version 6 or 7 maybe. I can't remember, just some different like versions of the Phase 2 mold. But yeah, it's derived its general philosophy from like the original mold from like 2005. So yeah, makes sense. It's pretty cool. I like it. But also it's kind of like, you know, a thing. It's both a downgrade in a sense that it doesn't have much playability or just like customization with it, but also it's an upgrade because it is more better proportion. So yeah, also sculpted as well. Pretty much of that. But for articulation of this mold, because I've never really discussed it beforehand, it's significantly better in comparison to like the previous mold, that being this one here with Gray, is that it has a very, very nice ball joint, including abdomen also being ball jointed as well, being like well hinged technically, but yeah, with these really unique like rubberized floating shoulder pads. This was derived from, I believe, the Black Series figures, so that's super cool that it has that also. Or taking the Black Series mold of the Phase 2 Clone Trooper. Yeah, just hinged elbows. Very nice hands also, which fold up and down. Like this trend is a little harder on my first Trooper. Not sure as to why, but it's supposed to like bend downwards like that. It's like a little bit more stiff on my copy. Unfortunately, has a thigh cut, like ball jointed hips, which is amazing. Particularly calf cut. It's also like a very nice knee bend and an absolutely amazing ankle rocker. Like you have to really experience this mold for yourself, so like just have the just feeling of the awesome like hand feel this figure has, because yeah, this figure starts really well. But generally, yeah, this all the articulation of it is pretty basic for modern vintage collection in general. However, it's fantastic for clone troopers because again, we were stuck with this thing for like, God, I don't know how long, like 10 years, right? 11, 10-ish years for a while until this thing came out back in 2023. So yeah, took a long time for us to get like a replacement. But interesting enough, forget to like comparison, etc. Accessories are pretty much the exact same as the previous version released for Vintage Collection Clone Troopers, as it casts in like a gunmetal gray. It's very weird, and this is the same for like both versions, mind you. There's no real huge difference between like the Shock Trooper and like the 501st Trooper. They use the same exact accessory, same color, same everything. It's just that they covered like in this gunmetal gray. It's very weird that they chose that. And also due to them being reused, you also have this weird mold degradation where everything's like a lot softer because the details on the gunmetal gray ones with the 501st Trooper and the Shock Trooper. So that's unfortunate, but at least they're different. But yeah, visually speaking, so they won't confuse them, because that has happened to me where I can actually confuse different accessories of different versions of figure. And for comparison, here is the Shock Trooper with the Lego version, which I do have a physical copy of. This is the Coruscant Guard gunship / the 20th anniversary of the 2003 Clone Wars. The Star Crossy one, the Star Wars Clone Wars version, not Star Wars the Clone Wars version. Not confusing, but also again, that's Star Wars for you. But generally, yeah, just have that minifigure They look pretty good together. Different shades of red, but generally just Lego Shock Trooper. Also, both versions of the, once again, the newer, like, post-season 7, Clone Wars 501st Trooper, which we're going to use both of them together, that being the helmet holes version and non-helmet holes version, which, once again, both of them I have. And once again, bring in the SS Blasters fall off again. It's annoying. 5s and the Bad Batch version of, like, as he falls again, Rex, back there together with the 501st Trooper. They look very nice together. The blue also matches with all of them, which is insane because I say actually kind of rare for the blue to match. But also, it is kind of sucky that this mold is slightly shorter than the Andor mold, and also that Rex is also the older mold. And doesn't really look that well with the newer mold, seen with the 501st Trooper here. And also, I never really got that, what was it, Season 7 version of Rex at GameStop, which is still great, mind you. I'll probably pick it up someday, but right now I am without a good-looking Rex, unfortunately. Alright, so for recommendations and generally just editing off here, let me mention firstly that this is Echo, not 5s, because I sometimes call them throughout the review 5s instead of Echo. Sorry about that. But also, in comparison to Echo, Blitz is a lot cheaper in general. Even though yes, all three of the Rancor Battalion, just company, whatever, figures are, relatively speaking, still really expensive. Blitz is also technically the cheaper one of all of them. Even though yes, it is unfortunate that when he went to sell for 8% of Walmart.com, he did sell out, unfortunately, and still is also. However, the Shock Trooper and the 501st Trooper are still available throughout online retailers and even retailers physically like Target, etc. However, distribution for both of them is still awful. Also, 501st Trooper is a little bit cheaper now on Amazon.com for like $13 to $14, so really speaking a little cheaper than beforehand, but still very expensive. And also, Shock Trooper is still super expensive, sticking around like what $70 current right now on Amazon, which is still very expensive. But besides that, that's all I have really to say for all these three figures. I do like them very much, and I do recommend them also. It's just, well, they're really expensive, unfortunately. Besides that, like, comment, subscribe, and hopefully I shall see you next time. Bye.